Michael, have you ever been around Kyle on a morning when like we're traveling?
This is Auto Collabs.
And it's like 9 a.m. and he hasn't eaten yet?
Yes, I have. That was New Orleans.
I mean, I could name a dozen places where that happened. How would you explain his demeanor at that moment?
Very pointed and technical.
I mean, he's typically technical, but pointed is one of those. I'm channeling my Kyle Mountsier vibes right now because somebody's power went out earlier, so we have to record these now. I mean, I'm not going to blame that on you. What are you doing, Kyle?
Popping popcorn.
I don't know. There's a thing. So I have a really active 5-year-old, and so I've been spending a lot of time on a trampoline lately.
Oh,
Okay.
So you're extra hungry all the time.
Well, yeah. And all of a sudden I've forgotten. I'm like, oh, that's right. When you're active, you get hungrier.
Yes.
And I'm
crankier.
hungrier. And I'm hungrier and crankier. And Kyle just pulls out this bag of cheese puffs or whatever he's eating.
They're magical.
And you're on
Aldi.
Central. You both are on Central Time. I'm on Eastern Time. And I'm just like, I will reach through this camera and slap you.
Punch a mug and
Sounds
take
like the
your
great
cheese
environment
puffs.
to do an interview.
It's going to be great. We're going to be fine, guys. I promise. We're going to be fine. Greg is a consummate professional.
He is.
We
I
don't
have
have to be
game face.
professionals.
This is not my game face. My game face happens when we're in the interview.
That's
not
great.
right now. No, but
Well-
Greg is always great to have on, and he's always got a lot to talk about. And he's one of those guys that, whenever we show up in the interview, he can riff on just about anything going on in the auto
Pretty
industry,
much.
which is why it's so much fun. So we hope you enjoy this interview with me, Hungry, and Greg Uland, ready to talk. Well, Greg, thank you so much for joining us again on Auto Collabs. It's so fun whenever we get to sit together. We got to actually be in person a little bit at the NADA show. We're about to be in person again at a SoduCon, and it's just good to be with you, my friend.
Yeah, you as well. No, it's funny. Before we started recording, Kyle and I were talking. I said, "How do you guys have time for this right now? You kind of got a big show coming up. You're putting on the Super Bowl here in like 2 weeks."
I know. It's
Yeah.
well,
And I immediately responded with we don't, but we always have time to hang out with you. Well, no, I honestly like that, for this podcast and for those that listen, we have some people that we know a bit more, right? Because we've had FaceTime with them and hung out, and then people that we're getting to know. And, there's different wonderful things about both, but it's always good to hang out with you because I feel like we can just have a conversation and talk about what's going on in the world of auto broadly, what's going on with the Reynolds team, and just kind of like it's like catching up. We just happen to record it.
My question to you was like, how do you have time for this? Because baseball season's firing up, and you're like the kids youth baseball coach of baseball coaches.
Well, that's the part-time job, right? This one has to take priority.
Yeah.
But the kids, we have fun. We're at the ball field pretty much every night. Sometimes we get Fridays off, but it's fun. That's the evening fun time, right?
I want to see. So Kyle has recently started coaching club soccer.
Okay.
And so
Yes.
I know there's this whole persona that I just want to feel and be. I want to see Coach Greg and I want to see Coach Kyle in action. Because I already have in my mind what they both look like.
We're just going to be
awesome.
at a SoduCon on the floor with whistles just yelling at people like faster across the, it's going to be great. It's going to be so good.
Fantastic. But, alas, we can't talk about youth sports all day. We have a podcast to record about things like robots and efficiency and AI, all things that, really, I don't think have made their way into youth sports yet. But are making their way into dealerships all over the place. I'm going to talk about my my favorite first, but it's probably the least important. Robots.
Yeah.
I was got such a kick out of seeing the robots just meandering around the Reynolds booth at NADA, and we begged and pleaded for you all to bring them to a SoduCon, but they're not over 21. They can't be in the casino, so alas, they won't be here. But tell us about the robots for a minute, because then we'll move on to other things. But I need to hear more about the robots first.
Yeah. So if anybody hasn't seen it, RELO is our parts delivery robot, and it's essentially automatically dispatched through the DMS. So think about the workflow where technician identifies work. It's sent to the customer electronically by the advisor. Customer approves it with a text message or just hitting, approve. That comes back into the DMS. So it's added to the RO. So a parts ticket's created. Parts guy gets an alert. says, hey, go pick these 3 parts, put them on rack 1. He picks them, he says finished in the DMS, and then the robot is automatically dispatched, comes, picks up rack 1, takes it to bay 8, drops it off, and goes on its next run. So
I mean, come on.
Right. So the technician, and obviously the benefit here is the technician never stops working, never leaves the bay, never has to walk to parts, never has to really wait on parts, right? Because he's not waiting on, whether it's a mobile back counter that a lot of dealerships are implementing, or it's a parts runner that he's waiting on. And then there's that interaction that always happens, right? So he's still going to waste some time, regardless of whether he's walking to the parts counter or not. Now that just the parts appear for him, he continues working. So it's been pretty exciting. We got them live in dealerships now, so a lot of dealerships are coming on board and getting live. We're launching multiple dealers really every day, and getting those up and running. It's pretty exciting to see them and starting to see the efficiency gains already.
Oh man.
If I'm a technician, this is like the greatest advancement, because okay, a technician is like, I don't really want to shoot videos of myself like talking about the car, but I know it can make me more money. That's fine. I hate like typing in every single line, every RO, and taking photos on a mobile app. But if I don't have to leave my bay and I can turn more hours per day per week, that's money in the pocket right there, right? And it's just because I got efficient time. It's not because like I gave my advisor more to sell or a better upsell path or things like that. It's just I already have something that needs to be turned into labor hours, and I kick that up. But then it's more efficient for the consumer as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and think about that technician, right? So what's a minute worth for a technician? What's a minute worth of a technician's time for a dealership? And when you break that down, say it's $5, just as in general.
Yeah.
So that technician and that dealership per technician has 480 units per day to sell at $5 a unit, right? So 480 minutes in an 8-hour day. So if they got 480 units and they can, and let's say, I don't know, how many minutes does a tech, call it 20 minutes, right? That he's walking, waiting, doing whatever each day.
Easy.
That's inventory.
And that's if they don't start talking about the game at the counter.
Yeah. So that's inventory that's literally just spoiled. It's gone. Like if you think about it from an inventory perspective, like you'll never sell
Fully
it.
perishable inventory, right?
100%. Yeah. And as soon as it's gone, it's gone. So the more inventory, if you think about it that way, that you can save and ultimately sell for that technician and that dealership, I mean, that is just going to continue to exponentially grow over time.
Yeah, I actually have a friend. He works for a parts supplier for Stellantis, Nissan, a bunch of OEMs. They are frame welders, right? And their entire business model is built around line uptime and scrap rate, right?
Yep.
So like, like their best lines are like 85% uptime, 1% scrap rate, right? And there are so many production style businesses that are thinking about time as inventory, right? We've typically gone at like bays as inventory, right? Bay has to turn 11 hours a day to be profitable and efficient. But you're talking about a whole different inventory, viewpoint. And how are you exposing that data? Because is that data like something that you're thinking, oh, we should expose that to the dealer as a KPI, really?
So when you think about it, there's a KPI that exists today that's not as finite as what we've been talking about, which is tech productivity, right? So what's our benchmark on tech productivity? Meaning if the tech has 8 hours in the shop, right? What percentage of those 8 hours is he actually working on a vehicle? And when you look at tech productivity over time, I don't know if you've looked at this before, it's actually going down, which is like not what we want, right? So over the last like 5-10 years, we've gone from 90% to 88 to 87.5. So the trend is actually down on tech productivity.
What's the reason for that?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. One, vehicles are getting more and more complex to diagnose. I mean, that's a part of it.
Oh, like the hour diag's taking a full hour.
Right. Exactly. So that's a part of it. A part of it is the other tasks that we're asking technicians to do, which again, some of them are valuable, right? But if a tech now has to take a video, right? Certainly they need to do an MPI. It needs to be, we put pressure on them to make it a good MPI, have good notes. This isn't necessarily their.
Yeah, it's no longer like I remember the old MPIs. It's like you got the
line through the thing, right?
It's just a straight line. It's like, I checked all those.
I didn't even check them all. I just drew a line through them all. Never seen that. Yeah.
So there's a lot more tasks. So how can we claw back some of that time, right? And this is a great way to do it. Just keep them turning the wrenches, because that's, first of all, it's what they like to do. Second of all, it's what makes them money. Third of all, it's what makes the dealership money. Like we got to sell the hours.
Everybody wants it to happen.
Yeah.
Look, you know what? You know where I think we're going to regain a lot of technician efficiency is if the vehicle can pull itself into the slot and the old one can park itself again.
That's why CarMax, their production system is so efficient, is because the technicians never spend time in the vehicle moving it. They have people that deliver it to the bay and then they remove it from the bay.
Yeah.
And so if the vehicle can do that, like I just saw, it was a video of a test, like a Model 3 leaving
off the line onto the
floor, right onto the carrier, like right over to the carrier. That's a good point. Well, I didn't expect my robot question to get us this far, but I think it's a really meaningful conversation that makes a measurable difference to be thinking through these items in, one of the most sustainably valued place of a dealership in fixed ops. And I also love that Reynolds is like from paper to parts robots and everything in between.
Well, and paper to parts, that's a great advertising.
Just came out.
From paper to parts robots.
And everything
it all alliterates, all the stuff.
Well, I love it.
So we were actually, Greg, we were actually talking this morning on our daily podcast about efficiencies and scale. Yep. And I think that there's two places where we're finding that be a big question mark in the industry. One is like growing groups trying to find efficiencies and scale instead of just like acquiring a new store and letting it be. It's like, no, we're going to roll up these things into software or people management or anything like that. So that's like one piece of it that obviously Reynolds is focused on because you have a lot of the largest groups in the country. But also when you think about the data efficiencies at scale and understanding and leveraging data. And I think, what I've seen Reynolds do over the past, really, let's call it like 5 to 6 years, is start acquiring these companies that allow you to have touch points across the retail and fit stops environment. And now you're starting to tie all those together to like enhance both of those places of efficiency. Can you talk to how some of that has been going, especially as the last year we were at Amplify, you announced Spark AI, right? How is that going? Like what's current status on that?
No, it's going really well. When we look at acquiring companies, obviously we're looking to create efficiencies for the dealership. That at the end of the day, the success of the store is really what's at the heart of what we're doing, including our acquisitions. So we aren't looking at an acquisition and saying, okay, this company is something that maybe we don't do or don't do well, so let's go ahead and buy it. It's more so, how can we help our dealers be as successful as possible? And we do that through development, we do it through support, but we also do it through acquisition. So, some of the recent acquisitions, you look at TSD with rental software, right? You look at AGWS with insurance products. You look at AutoVision and was recontract, we rolled it into AutoVision in the used vehicle management space. There's a lot of these companies that we've bought and we've incorporated them into our retail management system. So taking the DMS obviously at the center and building it out both through development and acquisition. But when we acquire these companies, we really want to make sure that the data underneath all of these tools and all of these products is tied together. It's a single system, and we've always talked about it as a single system with a single unique identifier for every customer, every vehicle, and every transaction. And that's really, really hard to do. But when you think about it historically with software, in order to do anything powerful, you need to have that kind of single unique identifier, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't, then you have all of these different tools where, just use a salesperson as an example. There have been different documentations over the years that have showed, hey, a salesperson is going to touch, 7 different tools when they sell a car. It's probably more than that. They have to enter a VIN in 4 different places. And so there's all these inefficiencies. And what happens is you end up with duplicate information, you end up with inaccurate information, and then just missing information in different tools. So none of them can function at a really, really high level, or at least as high as what they're expected to. And it creates these inefficiencies where it really slows, in this example, a salesperson down. Instead of the intended impact of speeding them up, they have to go to all these different places and it slows them down. Yeah. So you look at that, and then you look forward and you say, okay, so if that happened with software, where these software tools were slowing people down because they had to go to all these different places, what's going to happen with AI? And that's where we're heading now. With all of these AI tools, and they're out there everywhere, right? There's a new AI tool every 4 hours. I feel like
that's maybe 3 hours. Yeah. If you're subscribed to emails, you get the new announcement every 3 hours.
Right, but the tool itself it's gonna actually take action. It's gonna do things rather than just having information and enabling salespeople in this example or anybody else in the dealership to operate. It's gonna go do some functions. And if it has inaccurate information, if it has duplicate information, if it has missing information, it's gonna do the wrong thing, or it's gonna recommend the wrong thing, right? If you keep that person in the loop, it's not going to be able to function properly. So rather than causing inefficiencies without tying all these things together, you're causing the wrong thing to happen, right? And you think of the implications of that when you're reaching out to a customer and you're making an offer. That can be a big deal, right? And being able to tie all these things together becomes more and more and more important as we move into the future.
Yeah, when I actually, as I'm thinking about and listening to you talk about this, it's actually shocking to me that, and I talk about this a lot with the tech side of stuff that I'm thinking about, and like speeding up websites, right? We actually find, and you see this with any technology or any process, sometimes, actually a lot of the times, the more savvy, technologically forward thinking dealerships end up buying or supplying their team with more and more technology over time, right? At an attempt to increase customer, satisfaction or, engagement, and increase the efficiency of the team member. All the while, they're only adding complexity instead of driving efficiency, which is doing the adverse of what the sales pitch is to do those things.
Oh, the technology. That's so interesting that you bring that up. I was reading an article today. Who wrote it? A guy named Peter, just a really well-known technologist. And he was talking about how the use of AI, even in simple tasks, is making people very inefficient. And one of the examples he gave was writing emails. And he said, okay, say my daughter is sick today and I need to tell my boss I'm not going to be there. So he goes in and he has a little thing, drafts a prompt, write my boss an email explaining I won't be there because my daughter's sick. Hello, Bob. I hope you're well. Right. And it's like, I'm writing to inform you that my daughter is ill today. Therefore, I will not be able to fulfill my obligations. Right. I will do my best to care. Right. So he does that. He goes, okay, obviously I'm not sending that. My email would be like, hey, Gary, whoever's sick, I won't be in the office. And then he goes through a series of prompts of what he would need to do to get it to respond like that. And he was just talking about how layering technology on problems, he called them horseless carriages right now. And it could easily become that if we're not being very considerate and deliberate about how and when we're deploying the tech. So you just reminded me of that, Kyle, when you said that. But I feel it in my own life, right? Because we're heavy users and heavy adopters of the new technology to try to get use. And that is the consideration. Is this actually making it faster, or is it making it slower and us a little dumber in the process?
Yeah, and that's where I think you have to focus on the engine or the horse in that analogy rather than the carriage, right? The carriage is the tool. It's the thing that spits out the email for you. But that tool is going to give you really bad output if it doesn't have access to all the information that's in your head, right? So same thing applies to a business or a dealership. Any AI tool needs access to a unified AI data layer so that all of the information that's in your head, that's in your CRM, that's in your DMS, that's in any other tool that you have, if you have a CDP, if you have a market, like all these tools, any AI application needs access to those, and it needs to be a single unified AI data layer so that it can actually create an output that you don't have to rewrite.
Yes. Yeah. And why it's actually like, I keep going back to this. Like when we started digital marketing, we were like, good news, everyone. We're going to be able to track everything. You'll know 100% of what the dollars that you're spending are doing. And then it's like, good news, everyone. We got CDPs. You'll know everything, right? Good news, everyone. AI came to save it. You don't have to lift a finger. And the reality is that like micro touch points for each of those only solve a portion of the problem. And until you integrate your ecosystem and like tie it all, like you, I love the fact that you said like there's a unique identifier for X, whatever X
Right.
is. Like until you tell it that's the unique identifier and here's the connective tissue for all of that, nothing about the connective tissue actually matters. And so I would say like if a dealership or a software provider isn't thinking about what their unique identifier is in their vernacular is, and making sure that that unique identifier can connect to X other unique identifier that's important to the data set, then like you're literally just going to spin your wheels over and over and over. So, man, I'm excited because I can't wait to like see this put into practice and into play. And we'll be talking more about it at a SoduCon and obviously kind of following the story. Because I think it's still an unfolding conversation and we'll figure out where it goes.
Without a doubt. It's like not even close to be. We haven't even started to unfold the conversation.
We haven't even started.
We haven't. Well, we look forward to being with you and your team in person, both on the stages and the exhibit halls and the receptions and all the things in just a little bit here. It's coming quick, but thank you always for being just such an advocate of dealers and their goals and moving their initiatives forward and helping us all, think a little bit broader about how things are connected.
Hey, they drive our world. The automotive retail world is the best industry on the planet, and those retailers are the ones that make it all happen. So I think it's
amen to that.
All of our responsibilities to make sure that they're successful.
Indeed. Greg, thank you so much for being with us today.
Always my pleasure. See you soon, guys.
You know, it'd be interesting though, is if we put a hungry countdown timer on our episodes where it's like halfway through, because one of the four of us on a call is going to be hungry.
We'll just go with the host. One of the three of us is going to be
and
hungry.
then you could count them down to when I give an abrupt ending, because like sometimes we're like great at our closes and we're like, all right, well, this is so much. And sometimes we're like, thanks for joining us on Auto Collabs.
And they were like,
off screen.
now you know the rest of the story. I love the part where we're talking about robots in that conversation. It's going back to food at their booth when the little robots were running around with water and beverages and things like that. But I had no idea, like the way Greg and they're approaching just fixed operations revenue and minutes being units of production and just like optimizing for minutes of production. And
look, I thought when I was in sales trying to figure out how to make the desk act like a bay, like deals per desk, like hours per bay, that I was savvy. Now I'm like, these cats are trying to figure out minutes per day as units of inventory. Come on.
Perishable inventory that once it's gone. So this little robot's going to help us.
That's a level of efficiency that I think our industry has to get to. Like, well, okay, let me just say our industry broadly, I talked about this, is on that, right? When you look at production lines, time, like the Toyota's, just-in-time manufacturing that so many people have assumed as their manufacturing principle. Like you have to be diligent about every minute, every millisecond, everything that passes through QA.
Yeah.
And the fact that we run our dealerships on like, I hope I sell a car today, is like, it's kind of wild to me.
There is a parts manager at a dealership somewhere in America or Canada right now, opening a box in the back, being like, oh, a catalytic converter from a 1993 Oldsmobile.
Oh man,
what do we do with it? So I think about this and its effect on obsolescence, which we know is a huge issue, and just the dollars that are sitting in boxes that'll never get sold. Huge impact. Well, listen, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Greg Uland and a very hungry Paul J. Daly, Kyle Mountsier, and myself. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us here on Auto Collabs.
Welcome to Auto Collabs. Why are we recording?